Seahawks fans, wherever you may be, thanks for listening to the show. Join your hosts, Bill Alvstad and Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Hey, hi, Seahawks fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers, here to talk Seahawks football. And we are doing mostly a salary cap show, our own free agents review, so that we can kind of figure out where we stand as we head into the free agency period coming up in just a short period of time, about a month from now. And that'll kind of set the table for everything else we talk about in the offseason regarding free agency and potential needs that we've got coming up in the draft as well. We're going to talk about the coaching search, get you all updated as to where we're at Sunday morning as we record, as far as what that search looks like, and also other coaches from Seahawks, the Seahawks staff that would be interviewing with other players. Keith, welcome in. How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's been a lovely week since the last time we talked, because the Seahawks are Super Bowl champions, and it's hard to just take the smile off of my face because of that. Unfortunately for me, we have to begin looking at how this team is going to change now, and knowing that it will change because every year it's different. And so that's where we're at. We're right at the beginning of the offseason. We're going to look at the beginnings of how this team is going to be slightly different for next year.
Yeah. I love the quote that Mike Macdonald came out with at the end of the NFC Championship game on the stage when he said, "We don't care." And that's kind of how I feel about the entire offseason process. It's like, this is the first time in a while, and since we've started. In fact, Keith, just thought I'd throw this out there. We are officially now entered into our 10th season. Doing this show, reached our 9th anniversary last week. And so now we're into season 10. Crazy. But yeah, you know, in doing this process, we are now Super Bowl champions, which is amazing. And that stays with you for a while. And throughout this process, we kind of approach it that way. We're already really well set from the front office all the way through the entire organization. So anything else is kind of a bonus, if you will. And the intention is to run it back and to repeat back to back, which is hard to do. I think there's only 2 repeat Super Bowl champions in the last 25 years. One is New England. I don't know what the other one is. It's hard. Even those, well, I think it's
wasn't it Kansas City?
Yeah. It's super hard to do. Even when you're completely built out and you're structurally sound and you've got the head coach that we do in the front office, it's just hard. Like every organization wants to do that, and it's almost impossible to pull off. So we'll see. We got really close last time, obviously, within a yard. That team was a superstar stud team, like all pros throughout the entire roster. It's just volatile when you get back to a certain level. The different players have change perspectives and outlooks, and money becomes a factor, and the whole thing, right? The good news is we're super young. Got the 3rd youngest roster in the NFL, at least entering the 2025 season, and I think that we're set up really well, and we'll talk about a lot of that today. Let's talk about this coaching thing. A couple of moves, nothing with the offensive coordinator job that is still pending on the Seahawks coaching staff. We are still interviewing the internal candidates, which are Justin Outten, who was actually blocked from interviewing with the Los Angeles Raiders for their OC position. And then Jake Peets, Mac Brown, and Andrew Janoko are also still on our coaching staff and interviewing, going through that interview process. Go ahead, Keith.
Well, you can't block someone from a promotion. Um, and so I know they blocked him from interviewing with the Raiders, and it was assumed it was going to be the OC position. But if Seattle blocked him, it was because it was a lateral move.
Yeah, he was going to go over there as the run game coordinator. That is
Yeah.
correct, Keith. Sorry, I missed.
And so, but the fact that you look at Kubiak's how he's putting together his staff over in Las Vegas, and you and I both expected him to pilfer more of Seattle's coaching staff than he has. There's some really good coaches here, guys that could use kind of deserve a promotion, and yet he's really not been pilfering all that much. And you got to think that that has to do with either Mike Macdonald or John Schneider, talking to him ahead of time and being like, dude, you know, look where we're at. We're ready to run this back. Don't kill us. And Kubiak being willing to listen and honor that. Because
Well,
otherwise,
that's exactly what happened. So the Mike Macdonald went on Brock and Salt, talked to Salk, and essentially said that it's like, yeah, we had a conversation, and because he was asked directly about coaching and promoting and moving to other teams, specifically about the Klint Kubiak situation there with the Raiders, and he said, yeah, it's kind of a fine line. You want to be able to promote your guys, and we are set up to do that in this organization. We believe that. Also, we want to maintain our team, our roster, our continuity, and so we're going to be careful with that. And it kind of came out that he, in fact, did have a conversation before Klint Kubiak left about that. So I would imagine we've seen a couple of coaches interview out there. Carl Scott was interviewing for the DC job and with the Cardinals. Obviously, they let him go do that. You can't not allow somebody to do that upward mobility move. But we haven't, like you said, we haven't seen any other coaches. I think part of that too is, Keith, and maybe I'm reading this wrong, they wanted the right of first refusal is essentially what I'm seeing. So they want to go through that process with Justin Newton, Jake Peets, Mac Brown, Andrew Janoko for their own OC job before they kind of release those guys to go maybe possibly interview. So now that I would assume that that's done, and maybe maybe they will have a couple more names out there soon that weren't going to be OC here, and they could be available. So we'll see. In addition to those names, we're talking about Connor Singer from the Cardinals staff is interviewing for the OC position as well here for the Seahawks, and the run game coordinator, tight ends coach, Brian Fleury from the 49ers is also interviewing. He is outside the organization, obviously. So they're kind of going through the process, going through the full thing. I think Mike Macdonald spoke to that in that same interview. He said, we want to go through the process, be methodical, be intentional. But he kind of favored their internal candidates on that. And that makes sense.
I mean, they are interviewing run game coordinators, and that should tell you something, right? This team doesn't want to change. They've been able to retain Benton. He did not follow Kubiak. He's the offensive line coach, guy responsible for this offensive line coming together and the run game starting to really work, down the stretch and into the playoffs. And they want to keep that. They're hiring guys that are going to run that system for the running game and run the ball. This is not let's go. I saw somebody suggest that it was that a guy that the Seahawks should be looking at. It was Jonathan Adams. Suggest that the Seahawks would go with a guy like Cliff Kingsbury. And I'm like, no,
that's not a fit at all.
there's no way. Well, because that's like a rehiring Grubb,
It is.
as the guy that throws the ball on every play. That's not what the Seahawks want. That's not what the Seahawks need. So no, they're not. They're totally not going in that direction.
Can you
They're
imagine
going to
the
look at guys
nightmare
who
that
run the
would
ball.
be, having Darnold as your quarterback with a offensive coordinator that wants to throw the ball 45 times a game?
Yeah, he'd
To
turn it
me,
over crazy.
yeah, that would be crazy. The other thing I thought was somewhat curious is that the two people outside the organization that we are interviewing come from within the division. Cardinals and the 49ers. I mean, there could be a little bit of gamesmanship there, as far as, even if it's a little bit of intel that you're getting from those interviews on how those coaches approach game planning and their style and all that, how they interact with other coaches and stuff. That could all be just part of the process that they go through to try to get as much information about other franchises as possible.
Yeah, I don't know about the Cardinals, but if you can pilfer off of McVay's staff or Shanahan's staff in division, that doesn't hurt, because those are a couple of really good coaching staffs. And so,
Yeah. Well, speaking of
great.
other pilfering, so as you know, the Baltimore Ravens went through a purge this offseason. They jettisoned their head coach, Harbaugh, who'd been there forever, 18 years, something like that. And Zach Orr and Daniel Stern were available out there, and Mike Macdonald didn't waste any time when he was able to move past that Super Bowl to hire both of those coaches, which are outstanding coaches, and in their own right. Daniel Stern is a wonderkin guy from Yale, was cum laude from Yale. Just a brilliant mind, a schematic genius kind of guy, a guy that pays attention to the advanced stats, informs the coaching decisions on the field in real time during games and so forth. That's going to be amazing, and kind of reloading our assistants and bringing guys in that are really brilliant for potential guys in the future that might work out to promote. And then Zach Orr, Keith, he ran the Ravens defense the last 2 years after Mike Macdonald left. He was the defensive coordinator that stepped in for Mike Macdonald and ran the Ravens defense. Now they regressed a little bit, but he's still a good coach, right? He's still a good coach, really good. And Mike Macdonald really liked him. And I think that's an excellent hire.
Yeah. Macdonald knows him. He's worked with him. He knows Macdonald's defense. He's not coming in as a coordinator. He's coming in as an assistant who's going to help
Inside
teach and those
linebackers
kind of
coach.
things, which he's good at. He was not. I mean, the defense.
He needed more time.
The defense didn't regress a little bit. The defense fell on its face when Macdonald left, and that isn't necessarily just on Orr. Partly because the talent fell off, and partly because no one was going to come in and replace Mike Macdonald and keep that level of success. You just weren't. I mean, Macdonald is, he's the defensive guru of the NFL at the moment, and anybody was going to see a drop off. And then you take some of the talent away too, and you're going to see a big drop off.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, and I think Zach Orr recognized that he could benefit from coming back under the Mike Macdonald system and continuing to learn, and in a couple of years maybe emerge as a DC candidate again out there. And it only benefits the Seahawks when that happens, and that's a great example of the influence of Mike Macdonald and that coaching tree beginning to build, as well as being Super Bowl champions. Like, people want to come work for you, and that's a good example. Okay, so that kind of gets us caught up on the coaching stuff. Wanted to kind of start the show there. Let's talk about the salary cap in general, Keith. Every year, the NFL resets the salary cap the new salary cap is estimated to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 million plus 307 or something like that overall. Seattle, after making some adjustments this week, which we will talk about, have a current team cap space in 2026 of 63,629,461. That's an estimate. It's from the over the cap website. That could vary, a couple $1 million. What happened was, and people may have heard the figure 75 million entering free agency. That number's been reduced because the team has paid out some bonuses that were hard to achieve. Sam Darnold hit basically the entire bonus stack that he had entering the season. $500,000 for 4,000 yards passed, $500,000 for 67.5% or above completion rate, $500,000 for a top 10 offense, playoff berth, conference championship, divisional round, Super Bowl win, all of those things. Total bonuses $4 million. In addition, there were some guarantees that happened for salaries. A couple of surprises actually. On Friday, the salaries became fully guaranteed for Sam Darnold, for Cooper Kupp, which we thought maybe the team would either move on from him or adjust his salary, and that may well happen. But $9 million of his salary became guaranteed on Friday. He's coming back. That was a little surprising to me. I thought there's some money there that the team could have used to go in a different direction, and at least at this point they're not. Abe Lucas had some guarantees. Ernest Jones, DeMarcus Lawrence, Jaron Reed, all had guarantees or salary become guaranteed on Friday. Any thoughts around any of that?
Jaron Reed's was only $2 million, but it does. He's coming back because you aren't. If you cut him now, you save $2.3 million, but you're not replacing him for $2.3 million. So he's coming back.
Right.
I think that what you saw there, especially with the Cooper Kupp one, because $9 million becoming guaranteed, he's coming back. If he doesn't come back, you save less than $500,000 against the cap. So he will be playing. They might rework the deal a little bit, move some money around in order to free up some space if they need it. But with 63 million in cap space, you don't need it. And so for them to be able to go and just retain some of these guys, Cooper Kupp was not a massively productive player. What he was an incredible leader, especially for a young wide receiver room. And
he gave us exactly what we thought he was going to give us going into the season, Keith. We thought he would give us 12 games of production, and around 700 yards and maybe 4 or 5 touchdowns. And it was a little less than that overall, but right in that ballpark. That's kind of where we thought he would be. That's where he was. You could probably forecast that same sort of an impact next year. He's not going to improve upon that, I don't think. In fact, you would hope that the Seahawks would attract maybe an additional wide receiver, and Torrey Horton obviously coming back will impact some of those numbers as well. So.
Yeah, he had 47 receptions, 593 yards, 2 touchdowns. So not an overly productive year, but what he brought to the team in terms of leadership, blocking on the outside, just getting more out of the guys that are here on the roster, made that a very successful signing. And I think the team didn't want to lose that.
I know, but I was surprised. I'll be honest, Keith, if you were to say, okay, we're going to sign Cooper Kupp and he's going to have a $17.5 million cap hit in 2026, you would say no.
No. Yeah.
And they said yes. That surprises me. I mean, that's a big cap hit for an unproductive wide receiver number 3. And that's where he's at, and he's a year older. And I just, that's, to me, that's what happens. You got to be careful as a general manager, and John Schneider is as smart as they come. So you got to trust him on this, but this is kind of how a team gets in a little bit of trouble long term when players like Cooper Kupp get paid after a Super Bowl, because loyalty kind of comes into play, all that kind of stuff. You have to be very careful, because what you should be doing is you should be moving off Cooper Kupp, and you should have somebody either in the wings or a draft pick that's going to come in and replace that production for $3 million instead of 17. And because that money could be used to get an edge rusher or somebody else in this building that would have a bigger impact. And you mentioned the leadership stuff. Yeah. But 17 million, is that where we want to be with that? I don't know.
Yeah. You're right. You and I would both, you're going to sign him and bring him in at a $17 million cap hit. We would both say no, but this isn't, the nice thing about this is a 1-year thing. They're bringing Cooper Kupp back for 1 year, because there's nothing going forward after this year that stops them from making this move a year from now. And that's where this works. And then I was looking, the Shaheed is a free agent. Jake Bobo is a free agent. Tariq Thomas is a free agent. Literally right now,
Tariq Young.
Drake. Did I say Drake Thomas is right underneath it. Drake Young is a free agent. The wide receivers on this roster not named JSN, if they had moved on from Cooper Kupp, would have been nobody.
Yeah.
You can't go into an offseason with one wide receiver on your entire roster. So I think that's part of it. This was a little bit of a hedge against what happens if you lose Shaheed. Now, okay, it wasn't. Torrey Horton is still on the roster. I was exaggerating for those of you that are listening and being like, "What? Huh?" No. But they were hedging against guys like Shaheed moving on, and wanting to make sure that they've at least got some experience in the room. Because if you end up replacing Bobo and Young and some of the other guys with rookies, or especially undrafted rookies, maybe a guy like Ricky White III, who was one of the futures contracts that they signed, you want some guys in there with some leadership, some experience, someone that can come in and help run the room. And I think they're looking at the fact that they're in a situation where the wide receiver room is going to go through a lot of flux this offseason. And if you're going to go through a lot of flux at a position like that, you want a guy like Cooper Kupp there to provide the stability. And I think for them that was worth it, especially since it's for 1 year and then they move on.
And they will be continuing to invest in that position. I think in free agency, you bring somebody in mid-level. You try to sign Shaheed, but he really even didn't integrate with your offense at all. I mean, he had a couple impact plays, yes, but he really didn't integrate onto the productivity chart for this wide receiver room on our offense as it was constructed, and had every opportunity to. JSN, Cooper Kupp were really the only production you were getting out of anything going to the wide receivers. And then, his impact was minimal. I mean, he had that big, huge play in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, but he had one catch in the NFC Championship game, and it happened to be a big play.
No, he had the returns. Obviously, that's where his value is. You need to make sure you're not going to overpay for that, and somebody out there in free agency is not going to force your hand. We'll have to see how that goes. Is there anybody on that? You mentioned the future signing. Is there anybody on that list that stands out to you? I know we brought in re-signed Cam Akers, which is interesting, and Velus Jones coming back. Chris
Mhm.
Paul Jr., the linebacker, made sure that he was coming back. We really didn't get a chance to see him or talk about him at all. He stayed on the practice squad for about half the season without being moved up. But that guy came out of college and reminded me a lot of Drake Thomas, undersized guy with a lot of speed and coverage skills, dropping back into coverage. What are your
Mhm.
thoughts on that list?
Yeah, I thought the list was, um it was Ricky White the third was the number. Former draft pick of Seattle's that they put on the practice squad, brought up and down a couple of times. Was the kind of the name that stood out. Velus Jones, the running back. He actually got some playing time and got some runs in there. Zarcadia Wright looked really good
Mm,
in the
yeah,
preseason. Both of those guys were special teams contributors. But yeah, it was Chris Paul Jr. And then I actually liked the fact that Bubba Thomas is coming back at nose tackle. He was a guy that we looked at and thought, okay, he could uh,
big space eater.
big space eater. He could actually have a role in terms of freeing up a guy like Byron Murphy to go just be a game wrecker. And I mean, Brandon Peely ended up winning that job over him, and never let go of it, which is great for him because he actually played pretty well. But still, those big space eaters that aren't just essentially offensive guards on the defensive side of the game, um, they're hard to find. And so I like the fact that Bubba Thomas was re-signed, but the rest of the list is, I don't know, they're not. It's not particularly interesting. Um,
I like Jarcadia Wright. I think you want to definitely have a hedge on the roster for um, Charbonnet,
Charbonnet. Yep.
who's probably going to start the season on IR. Um, Ricky White, obviously, there's some talent there, some speed.
Mhm.
Bubba Thomas, J.R. Singleton, I think they like him as well. Jamie Sheriff is still hanging around with some speed off the edge. Chris Paul, we mentioned. Federico Mangers, the international
Center.
player, offensive center. Velus Jones, obviously. Maxon Hook, safety. Tyler Hall, corner, hung around the roster for about half the season. Montori Foster, which is a wide receiver, as well as Tyrone Broden, which they like, big, tall guy last year from Arkansas, undrafted free agent on the roster. They're giving him, and all these guys are kind of familiar because these are our own free agents. They really didn't sign anybody outside, although they did sign Jalen Gaines to a futures contract as well. He did start in preseason with the Seahawks and then was cut, and so he's coming back.
Mhm.
Obviously, probably not a huge impact um, next year. So as far as free agents go, I wanted to kind of have a slightly deeper discussion. We can certainly, as we get closer to free agency and decisions, we can have a bigger show about free agents and outside free agents that are available. But I just kind of wanted to bounce some names and have your reaction on do they come back? And if they do, uh, just kind of ballpark-ish numbers. It doesn't have to be accurate, just for a conversation. Josh Jones, offensive tackle, swing tackle for the Seahawks.
Um, I want him back, um, at at a similar contract than what he played on this year. Um, I
Yeah,
thought they overpaid for him when they got him, but then when he came
$4
in, he
million.
was
dollars.
yep. He was steady. Um, and had to fill in on at left tackle and did so for like 3 or 4 games in a row and played well. I don't think you can get him back at that because I think another team is going to look at that and be like, "Hey, we're, in the lookout for a right tackle. Here's a guy that we can get on a 2 or 3-year deal for, $5 million and know that he's going to be all right." Um, I think that's going to be where they want to go with him. But if I'm the Seahawks, I would have you're going to end up in that. Do you want to overpay for him? I don't know, but who else do you have on your roster? Like who's going to replace him as your swing tackle? And in reality, he was more than a swing tackle because he was also available at guard when they needed him because he can play 4 positions. There's a
I
lot
would
of value
say
there.
honestly, Keith, it was even more valuable than that. And he came in and played for Charles Cross for 3 games in a
Mhm.
stretch of games, which was incredibly important for the Seahawks
Yeah.
to get that number 1 seed. And so I would say that he's probably in the top half of the league, if not the top, 75th percentile as far as um, the capability of him as a swing tackle and a fill in. And you're right, he can play 4 positions for you. I bring him back. I certainly would at the same price. Like
Mhm.
even if it went up to 5 million with 3 million or 3.5 million in guarantees, that's probably a number that I can deal with him, and that value can fill in
Mhm.
both for Abe Lucas, who does have an injury history, as well as Charles on the other side. Um, to me, that's a no brainer. How about the big one, the big splashy player, Shaheed at wide receiver slash kick returner? He was playing on the last year of a rookie deal at
Mhm.
$3 million. He's not going to be $3 million this time around, Keith.
No.
He could probably break 10 million, and if he did
Ugh.
break 10 million, somebody's going to pay that guy, right? Is it going to
Someone's
be the
going to
Seahawks?
because his receiving numbers, his yards per reception is huge. And his punt kick return like contributions are incredible. He gives you even if he's not a highly productive player in the passing game, he still has so much speed that he takes the top off a defense. They have to keep a safety back or give a huge cushion with their corner because he can outrun everybody. Uh, and I think that's part of what happened in Seattle is that he hit on a few plays where he used his speed to get deep. In the Super Bowl, we saw at least one where he got behind everybody, but the, pass was just a little short, and it allowed Christian Gonzalez to catch back up and knock it away, but, um, I
That would have been a
I
huge play.
yeah, I think that, what he brings is not necessarily shown in his production in terms of just receiving numbers, uh, and if unless you are really sure that Torrey Horton is gonna be healthy, um, and isn't you don't have to worry that he's gonna be having any lingering injury issues. I think you've gotta do what you can to bring him back. And if it's gonna cost 10,000,000, sure, let it cost 10,000,000. If it's gonna cost 15, let someone else pay him. And you're gonna have to go find someone else, which is unfortunate. I would love to have him back, but the Raiders have a lot more cap space than the Seahawks do, and
Mm. I was
uh,
just thinking of the Raiders. Raiders would be
and
a perfect fit for him,
he knows
especially with
Kubiak.
a brand new quarterback,
Mhm.
Kubiak. I mean, Kubiak's going to want a guy he's familiar with to help his wide receiver have some success.
Yep, and they're gonna go out and get, they're the number 1 pick, you know who it's gonna be, um, the kid from Indiana, and they're gonna want
Mendoza.
to, um they're gonna wanna put, guys around him that are experienced, that know the system, that can help, mentor and make sure he has a positive start. The Raiders are gonna overpay for a guy like Shaheed, and that's unfortunate, but, um, at the same time, like,
And we'll see.
you gotta do what you gotta do, but if you can't get it at a number, down around 10, you're gonna have to let him go and go find someone else.
He really had an impact on the return game. I mean, that's
Yep.
huge, especially the Seahawks really pride themselves on being a complete team in all 3 phases, and he was a big part of that. I could see them
Mhm.
slightly overpaying. I could see them going as high as 12, structuring the contract so that it doesn't have a huge impact in 2026, and kind of push that out a little bit. We'll see. Here's another big one on the defensive side, Keith, and this is going to be hotly debated. I think Boye Mafe.
Mhm. Boye Mafe is incredibly underappreciated, um, because he's not the big sack total guy, and but what he is a guy that just plays his position really well. He, is great against the run. He can cover. He does a lot of those things, but does he put up massive stats? No. But that's one of the things about defense is sometimes if you're doing your job isn't to put up massive stats. It's to, um, you know, keep the guy from getting outside, force the run back in, so your linebackers end up getting the tackle. And uh, guys like Boye and Mafe are why Ernest Jones ends up with massive tackle numbers because he does his job really well. And ultimately, like, do the Seahawks bring him back? I would love to have him back. Um, but you've still got Hall um, on the roster, who was, some people's vote for Super Bowl MVP. You've still got DeMarcus Lawrence on the roster. You've still got Uchenna Nwoso on the roster, although he's probably going to need a contract restructure. So you're already 3 deep at the position. Are you going to pay for Boye Mafe? I don't know. I don't think so. Um, I'd love to have him back though. I mean, if his market isn't what he thinks it is and what I think it's going to be on the open market, and he wants to come back at a discount, say $8 million, do it in a second. But I don't think
So,
yet. I don't think that happens.
so
I don't think that
here's
happens at all.
the problem with Boye Mafe and the way that Mike Macdonald uses him is he's a piece. He's a piece on this defense. He's a rotation piece. He's a guy that plays 50% of the snaps. He's got a skill set though that, given another team and scheme and structure, could be a larger piece to somebody's puzzle than Mike Macdonald's piece of the puzzle, and that therein lies the problem with re-signing him, because I think depending on the team, you could end up having him be a feature edge rusher on a team, and if he gets that opportunity, somebody's going to throw some money at him because he could end up making $17 million. As crazy as it sounds, he could end up being coveted as a Super Bowl type player in a scheme that was very successful, and he's going to be one of those guys, and he could end up benefiting from that with another team that is going to have a plan for him that features him a little bit more and gets those sack totals up. He's gonna want that. I think that makes him a guy that's probably going to be off this roster next year.
I would agree.
But I think he is going to get paid, $15 million. He is going to find a role with a team that's going to give him a little bit more upside. And in Seattle, he's never going to be more than what he is right now, I don't think, because Seattle is determined to surround their roster with players and talent, and he's going to have always competition there. The issue though for Seattle, hold on, Keith. The issue for Seattle is that we're already going to need, like, if I was to examine a position group in the draft or in free agency that Seattle could target players, I think edge rusher is going to be one of the ones that they're going to need to address, because you're always in need of pass rushers. DeMarcus Lawrence is going to be 1 year older. Nwosu's questionable whether they'll retain him, or even if they do, he's 1 year older. I can go, on down the line, Leonard Williams, etc. And so a guy like Boye Mafe, who's only 28 years old, would be a real asset if you could get him on a 3-year deal. So if it's not Boye Mafe, you're going to have to go out and pay somebody else, or draft a guy high enough to have an impact in a rotation. And so you got to kind of be careful here, because you want to be able to run it back. You want to be able to return to the Super Bowl. And one of the ways that got you there was players like Boye Mafe, who played maybe an undersized role in the larger scheme of things, but very instrumental in keeping that pressure consistent throughout an entire game.
Yeah, and if you look at the edge position, not defensive end, but outside linebacker, on this team, you're going to see that Mafe played 49.7% of the snaps. DeMarcus Lawrence played like 58% of the snaps. Hall, I believe, played 47% of the snaps, and Uchenna Nwoso played the rest. It it's fairly even across all four of them, and that's, I think, the way that Mike Macdonald wants it, because he wants guys fresh. He wants guys that are coming off the edge with fresh legs against tired tackles. And you see what happens late in games when Seattle's defense just seems to get better as the game goes on. Well, this is part of the reason why. And if Uchenna Nwoso, who has a large cap number, uh, coming off another
He's got a $20 million cap number.
yeah, he's not playing on a $20 million cap number.
You can save 11.5 million on Uchenna Nwoso if he was to be cut.
Yeah.
You'd have 8.5 million in dead money, but that's not the point.
No, but the point is, can you replace his production for 11.5 million? And would you rather have Uchenna Nwoso or Boye Mafe? And if it's a choice between the two of them, Mafe's younger and he's got a more diverse skill set. Uchenna Nwoso is a better pass rusher. He's better at coming off the edge and getting to the quarterback.
He's also plays the run really well.
Yeah.
But he doesn't drop back into coverage as well.
Yeah. Just saying that Mafe is more diverse because of that. But Nwoso's, before his injury, he was an absolutely elite pass rusher. And we saw flashes of that return as the season went on this year. But he also disappeared for really long stretches. And I think he's still working
injuries.
on getting stronger and getting that back. So we don't know where he's at.
And he's age
20
30.
million is a huge number.
He's 30 years old.
And so if you can rework his deal and get his cap number from 20 down to 12, that's a huge thing. And then maybe you use that that money when you do that to help bring back a guy like Mafe. I agree with you. I think someone's going to pay him. He's good. He's diverse. Is he flashy? No, but he's really good at a lot of things. And that's really valuable. And replacing him.
And the Seahawks drafted him, and there's something there. They want to continue to develop, all that kind of stuff. So it's just, I think it's just going to be it's going to be an outsized number based on what Seahawks fans are willing to pay a player, a role player. I think he may end up getting a feature player number from a team, and we'll see how that goes.
The one thing that I would question is if you pay Mafe now, that might prevent you from paying Hill next year. And the 49ers got themselves in this problem when they had that really stacked defensive line, is they paid guys and then the following year had to let a better player walk.
Are you talking about Hall? You said Hill.
Oh, Hall, yes.
I agree.
And so do you pay Mafe now knowing that means you have to let Hall walk?
And you'd have to pay Hall equal or better than what you paid Mafe.
Yeah, because you're not paying both of those guys.
Right.
And so you have to make that decision. Which one of those guys, if you're going to pay one, which one of those guys is more worth paying? Okay.
I'm going to give you a trio of 3 more defensive players, and then we can talk about a couple of offensive guys. Josh Jobe, Kobe Bryant, and Tariq Woolen, Keith. Those are instrumental to our secondary.
Yeah.
And these are big decisions.
Instrumental to the Super Bowl. All 3 of them. And I know people will talk about Reek and be like, oh, no, let him go, whatever. Because when he failed spectacularly. But he made a lot of plays. He covered, and he does things that other guys can't just because of his size speed combination. He's just really long, really fast, and can cover guys that other guys can't.
And based on his contract, dude, his rookie contract, he made $998,000 in 2025.
Yeah.
Obviously that's going to change, but
What's it going to take to bring
what a
him
value.
back? And
what is it going to take to bring Tariq Woolen back? Let's talk about Tariq Woolen. So played 75% of the snaps. Stats say, advanced stats, all that stuff say he's a borderline top 10 cornerback in this league who gives up big plays occasionally. But all the stuff in the middle, the improvement that we saw from him from the training camp until the end of the season, I thought was marked. I thought that the maturity level went up, and then it didn't. Like all of a sudden, he made some bonehead type stuff, and you're just like, "What happened?" Like if he doesn't make that that play at the end, the taunting call in the NFC Championship game, which could have impacted that game. It did
especially when he
impact
gave up
that
the
game.
touchdown on the next play.
It did impact that game. If that doesn't happen, I think you could clearly say that he was a player that you'd most definitely want back because of the improvement that he had during the season and from the time he was a rookie until now. And he got more steady. He was definitely had an impact. And now you're like, well, is he going to be worth it? So it was okay when he was on a rookie deal. Now he's not going to be. He's probably going to end up making, $14 million a year on the low end. Somebody could come out and pay him. Again, this is a Boye Mafe deal. Somebody could come out and pay him number one cornerback salary, and somebody wouldn't flinch and be grateful to have him on their roster. So he could blow my figure away, 14 million. What is that? He's probably going to make it 18. Yeah. And I don't think Seahawks are going to pay him $18 million.
I don't either, and that's why I think he's going to be gone. And I don't think it has anything to do with the taunting penalty or that. I think it's just going to be he's priced himself out of returning to Seattle. Now, the other thing that happened, which makes me think that he's probably gone, is that he was the dime player in Seattle. Now, granted, he played
wasn't even starter.
72.4% of the snaps, which is crazy because they think that's a dime player. That's a sixth defensive back. But that's who he was because they played three safeties before they brought on a third corner. And so they would pull off, a linebacker. They would pull out either Ernest Jones or Drake Thomas in order to get him on the field. But Josh Jobe was the starter who played 72.5% of the snaps. So 72.4 versus 72.5. That's interesting. But Jobe was the starter. He was the guy that moved around a lot more and was just super steady. And talk about a guy that, he made, what was it? He made more than I thought last year. He made $2 million last year.
They paid him. So he was a restricted guy last year, and they paid him to stay, basically.
And so he's an unrestricted now. His number is going to be significantly lower than Tariq Woolen's because his ceiling is significantly lower than Tariq Woolen's.
And his name recognition out there, the whole thing. Although I think that he's a comparable talent. And on the field, it shows that way.
I think he's a comparable in terms of productivity, but he's undersized compared to Woolen, who's big, and he's not as fast compared to Woolen, who's just got elite speed. But what he is he's really technically sound, where Woolen is not, and so you get similar levels of quality out of the both of them.
I'm really curious to see what Woolen looks like in another defense, and see if that productivity and that leadership comes out. Like he's going to be looked at. So, he's 27. He's going to be looked at as a leader. So I think he's going to get paid. And I think somebody's going to break the bank. I think he's going to end up being one of the top 4 paid free agents in the open market this year. And he could end up going into the 20 million range. And and somebody's going to pay him like a number 1 corner, and it'll be very interesting to see how he handles that.
I think that if you were a general manager, I would flinch at that, because when you bring him in, you're going to pay him in early March. It's going to be a long time before the games start, or the preseason games start in August, where what you are going to be being, what's going to be,
you just handed him like $40 million in guarantees up front,
and what's going to be shown on, all the replays are going to be the taunting penalty, the him giving up, the big touchdown, and over and over again. And people are going to be like, you just gave how much money to this guy? Because the plays where he doesn't have anything thrown at him because he's just draped all over someone in coverage.
And he was protected. He had, look at everyone that was around him, man.
I know. But so you that would give me pause as a general manager, because you've got to.
That's going to give John Schneider pause.
Yeah.
And he knows him better than anybody.
But it's gonna give someone else. It's gonna impact the other teams more than it'll impact John Schneider, because John Schneider, yes, knows him, and yes, they'll do that, but they also go, this general manager and these coaches know him. They know that isn't representative of him as a player, whereas you can't make that claim if you are with another team, because you don't know him. You don't know what he's like in the locker room. And so, yeah, it's just different. All right, let's move on.
Let's talk about Job really quick. So he's out there. You want to make sure that you're going to sign one of those 2 players, right?
You have to. They're your second starting corner.
And so Job's going to come back. What do you think that they'd be willing to pay Josh Job?
I think Job's going to make significantly less than
12, 10, 12.
12 was kind of the number that I was settling on. Part of me was maybe 10, because even though he's the starter and he played really well and all of that, he is undersized, and he isn't the fastest guy. And teams are going to look at him and say, he has reached his ceiling. This is what you're getting is as good as he'll ever be. And he does give up plays. And they're going to look and be like, yeah, and he was well protected with a lot of talent around him. So maybe he isn't the guy that we want to pay. And I think he's going to be cheaper. 10 million would be great. 12, I think, is the max that I would go. But you've got to bring back one of those 2 guys. And if it can't be Woolen and all of his athleticism, then you bring back Job and you stick him over there on the other side opposite Witherspoon, and you roll with it.
One of the most underrated and important players on this entire roster is Kobe Bryant. And I can't even believe it. That's coming out of my mouth, given the first 3 years in this system. But man, talk about a player that is really important in what Mike Macdonald likes to do. Diverse player, can kind of move all over the place for you. Very smart, and a playmaker. A guy that's kind of a ball hawk. And there's not many on this roster. What do you do with Kobe Bryant?
Man, you got to look at bringing him.
Hand him the bag.
Well, not really. Because yes, he is really smart and he does all these things, and he's very diverse, and he's great. But what happened when he was hurt and Tyakota had to play for him?
And Tyakota is a exclusive rights free agent this year.
Yeah, which means he's coming back at the minimum.
Coming back at a very, very nice price. Yeah.
Tyakota stepped in, and the defense was still really good and won a couple of really important games.
Are you saying you might move off of Kobe Bryant?
I don't want to, but I know that we're mentioning all these guys. You can't pay everyone.
I think you can, though. You've got $65 million. You could generate another 30 pretty easily by restructures. I mean, you could pay him if you wanted to.
I mean, I want to. But I want to,
but you don't want your salary cap to get out of whack. You might not get out of whack in 2026, but it's going to
but
get
it
out of
will
whack if you start
down the
paying
road.
guys like Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant at market rates for top end safeties or top end corners, and you don't feel like those guys are.
And know that a year from now, and they might actually do it this offseason
Is he
and
a
get a
system
jump
guy,
on it,
Keith?
is Spoon is coming up.
Well,
And
but is Kobe Bryant like a system player where he goes outside of Seattle's system and he reverts to what he was like in the first two years of his life here in Seattle?
I don't think so, because I think he's settled in as a free safety, where the Seahawks
Did move
didn't
around
really
a
know.
lot.
They didn't know how to use him. They moved him around. They asked him to learn like 4 different positions. Once he settled in as a free safety, he worked his way up the depth chart, got a chance to start because of injury, and never let go. And then just continued to improve even after he became a starter. I think that he's 27, right? He's a guy that what you're getting. I think you're getting a good player who tackles pretty well, but plays really smart on the back end, and makes a lot of plays. He's much better. Is a much better fit for um, Macdonald's defense, which plays a lot of cover 2 with 2 safeties back, than Pete Carroll's, who played 1. I think that was part of the problem. Or when you have 2 safeties back, you have that double shell. It's less ground for him to cover, and he can focus a little more. And I think that um, it's a combination of player and scheme lining up. So is he a scheme player? Okay, but
He's a
most
cover
teams
2
play
guy.
with that. Most teams play with that, with 2 safeties back. Very few have gone to the single high. That was a Pete Carroll made it look really good when he first came in. A lot of teams shifted to it. Then they realized they didn't have Earl Thomas, and they shifted back away from it. Pete Carroll didn't have Earl Thomas and forgot to shift back away from it. And that's what led to, among many other things, his decline um, as a coach. And, but you have, Bryant's, he's a system guy in a system that a lot of teams run. And no, they don't run Macdonald's system, but they do run cover
There's
2.
a lot of teams that would love to have Kobe Bryant
Yeah.
based on his experience in this defense. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to the offensive side. There's a couple players. One of them is huge. Ken Walker, running back. Do you pay running backs? That there's a philosophical question there. Do you pay a running back? Do you pay a running back a second contract? Ken Walker is 26. He may have played himself out of Seattle in that
I don't think so.
before the second half of the season, I would say you bring Ken Walker back at the right price, and that price is going to be $6 to $8 million, and you'd probably work out a deal with Ken Walker at that price based on the second half of the season. And then what he did after Charbonnet went down and being MVP of the Super Bowl. What happens now with Ken Walker?
Ken Walker comes back with Seattle. Because Charbonnet tore his ACL and is not going to be ready for the start of the season, you are not going in to next year's season without both of those guys. This is a team that wants to return to the Super Bowl and go back to back. They did it with the running game and Ken Walker propelling
There's
this
got to
offense.
be some real question, Keith, as to what Ken Walker are you going to get? Are you going to get the oft-injured Ken Walker in his first 3 seasons? Or are you going to get the Ken Walker that came on in the second half of one season that had a real impact on both receiving out of the backfield and running the ball with authority that you just didn't see earlier, and then the injuries impacting his time availability on the field? There's got to be a question there as far as how much money you're willing to spend and it could be north of 10. It's probably going to end up being the. I heard that they may extend the franchise tag on this guy. I don't know about that, but that franchise tag is worth 14.5.
Yeah.
And so, is he a top 5 guy?
Yes,
Oh.
he is, and he's viewed that way around the league. Because of his
Even
speed.
with all the injuries and the time off.
Yeah, he's viewed that way around the league. He's viewed as a top 5 running back. And
even though he split time with Charbonnet until Charbonnet went down.
Yes, and when Charbonnet went down, Seattle's offense got better.
That also coincided with Polamalu moving on and Justin Outen being the run game coordinator.
Yeah, I all of that. There's a lot that happened there, but and that's really unfair to Charbonnet.
And the offensive line finally, it all kind of came together, right? It all works in his favor. There's no doubt. Ken Walker is benefiting from the system, the blocking, the coaching, the Charbonnet injury. It all lines up for Ken Walker in this moment. And I don't know. With all that said, you're pretty sure, and I get it, and I understand Charbonnet being out and what happens. But at some point, philosophically, what do you do with that as a franchise that wants to make sure your integrity on the salary cap is maintained for years to come? Do you pay a running back now? Do you become one of those teams that ends up paying a top 5 salary for a running back in a league where you can find a lot of success by, Seahawks went out and drafted a pair of second round running backs, and that worked out. Can you draft a running back in the second round, number 64 overall in the draft, and have 85 to 90% of Ken Walker?
Probably. But that's a huge risk. And you brought up the franchise tag, $14.5 million would slide him right in with Jonathan Taylor, slightly above Alvin Kamara, behind Barkley, McCaffrey, and Derrick Henry.
Those are big guys. Those are big names.
Barkley, McCaffrey, and Derrick Henry, well, at least the top 2, were very productive, and they're 29 and 30. Derrick Henry, as you can see, his production starting to drop off, but he's 32. Alvin Kamara is 31.
Ken Walker's 26.
Yeah. You go down the list of running backs in the league. The first time you get to a 26-year-old is Kyron Williams of the Rams, and he's making 11.
And he just got paid last year. I think that my worry is if you don't protect Ken Walker in this scheme, which I think the scheme helps him stay healthy, in addition to Charbonnet splitting some carries helps him with durability throughout the season. If he ends up being the number 1 guy and maybe Charbonnet takes a step back or doesn't come back until week 8 next year, and there's really nobody that you're trusting to split carries with Ken Walker to begin the season, my worry would be that you pay him and then he gets injured and you don't have anything.
If there's no one that you trust to split carries with Ken Walker at the beginning of the season, who are you going to trust if Ken Walker is not on the roster?
Jarcadia Wright.
If you're going to trust Jarcadia Wright without Ken Walker, why aren't you trusting him with Ken Walker?
Right. No, I get that. Okay, so that's going to be a big question. I mean, Seattle has money, right? So Seattle's going to spend some of that money, and we've talked about all the unrestricted guys, and we've kind of moved off of the most expensive ones: Rashid Shaheed, Boye, Mafe, Josh Jobe, or Tariq Woolen, Kobe Bryant potentially. Like, who are you going to pay? Where are you going to spend that money if you've literally said, okay, we could move on from all those guys? Potentially. I'm not saying all of them, but I'm just, the conversation was had where you could see yourself being either priced out of certain guys or not willing to go up to the market value of certain guys. And
so the Seahawks being one of the youngest teams, the third youngest team in the league a year ago, and having all this cap space coming off a Super Bowl championship, they're going to spend the bulk of their money on themselves. They are going to go.
I agree
and
with that.
They're not going to go out and sign a splashy free agent. They're going to go and bring guys back. They're going to run this back as best they can, because what it was before they, what they're running back is the best team in the NFL. So yeah, they're going to use that cap space to make sure that 2026 looks a lot like 2025. And that might make 2027 a little harder, but they'll set themselves up that they can get out from underneath it and roll the team into something new for 2028. And you look at where you're going to save money by not paying guys. Do you want to fall back to the pack and let the Rams, which are already nipping at your heels, overtake you because you lost a bunch of talent because you didn't want to pay them, and when you had the cap space to do it? I think that's going to be the thing, is they're going to be caught trying to figure out how to bring as many guys back. Honestly, who are you going to bring in at running back who is as dynamic and flashy and important as Ken Walker? There's no other running back that's going to be available.
Are we going to get ourselves into, I mean, we really don't have a choice. What you're saying is we really don't have a choice. And I kind of side with that, right? Coming into this conversation, that's kind of where I was at. And the more we talked about these players and maybe not coming up to the market value on some of them, it's like, what do you do? But yeah, you bring back Josh Jones. I think you try to really bring back Shaheed. I think you try to offer Boye Mafe a contract and see if he'll take it. Mm-hmm. Ken Walker, I think, is a no-brainer. You bring him back at 12, or whatever it is, and you try to push that out a little bit into 2028, 29, and you kind of
making sure you
leave yourself some flexibility. Josh Jobe comes back for sure. Kobe Bryant comes back. Everything I'm hearing out of the organization about Kobe Bryant is stellar.
Yeah,
and he played 92% of the snaps. You bring him back; he's instrumental.
Yeah. You look at the list.
Bring back a guy like Tariq Woolen if you can. I think that it might not be possible, but you try. Tariq Young is another guy we didn't talk about, unrestricted. He's a special teams guy. You bring him back, he's not going to cost that much.
Yeah,
everybody else is under team control.
Yep, Drake Thomas is a restricted free agent, so they're going to tender him a deal and he'll come back. Brandon Peely is a restricted free agent, same thing. They probably don't tender Cody
Bobo.
Bobo or Cody White contracts. Let them become free agents and then sign them to the minimum. But the one guy I don't think comes back out of all the guys that we've talked about is Tariq Woolen, because I think they look at, they can play more nickel and less dime without him and not pay a guy $20 million a year. I think that's what they do. And then they try and find basically someone to come in and be the third corner. Or maybe they really like what Nehemiah Pritchett has done as far as his development. I don't know. I didn't see it this year. I saw kind of the opposite. And so I'm ready to they need someone else. But we don't know where the coaches are. What does Carl Scott think of Nehemiah Pritchett? Is he going to be ready to take a role if somebody gets hurt? I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. Carl Scott may not even know at this point. But I
the other things to consider are extensions. You'd mentioned Witherspoon in the future. He's unrestricted in 2027. Jaxon-Smith and Njigba is unrestricted in 2027. Derek Hall, unrestricted in 2027.
Both of those, the first two guys, are unrestricted in 2027 if their fifth year option is not picked up. So they're really unrestricted in 2028. But I think they would rather they have the cap space and stuff now, and you absolutely know those guys are gonna be paid. You're better off not pushing it out there too far, and dealing with the fifth year option, and then not possibly losing them. Get them re-signed. Do it.
I got a question for you. Did Charles Cross move off of that fifth year option? He got the full extension, right?
Yes, he did.
Over the Cap still has him as a fifth year option player with unrestricted attached to 2027. So
if you look at the Seahawks free agents, they have him as re-signing an extension, and they've got him with his new numbers. 26.1 million in average contract, 43 million in guarantees over the course of the contract. And he's only 26. Like, I think people like Charles Cross has been around so long, people think he's older. That guy is 26. He's still
What do you do with Leonard Williams in 2027, age 33 in 2027? He's got a void year in his contract, so he's essentially unrestricted. He's got crazy.
I think you
see where he's at, I guess.
You see where he's at then. You're probably moving on from Leonard Williams at that point at 33. Unless he's willing to come back, at a discount. Which he might,
I mean, if he came back at the same number, I would take it. Like, that'd be a discount.
If you'll play it, do that 1 year at a time.
If the Seahawks win back to back, you're going to see a guy like Leonard Williams consider retirement. I mean, you've reached the pinnacle, and what else is there?
Yeah.
Interesting conversation. I think I agree with the Tariq Woolen assessment in that I think he might be priced out. I think Boye Mafe might be priced out just because I think teams would be willing to pay those guys feature player dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And Seattle will not. I think Tariq Woolen plays a part, but he's not a number one starting corner for this team.
Nope, that's Bill.
And he's going to want to be paid as such. And I don't blame him. He's got the talent. I think there's a team, half the league would pay him to be their number one corner. So that means that somebody's going to end up getting him, and it's not going to be the Seahawks. And it could very well be the Raiders.
The Raiders have so much cap space, and they've got a new head coach that happens to know Seattle's roster really well.
Yes. Yeah. And they need help. They need help all over the place.
They need help at every position.
Yeah. And then Boye Mafe, same.
Yeah.
Same sort of deal. Being across from Max Crosby, come on. I mean, that would be an ideal situation for him. Anyway.
Max Crosby being in Seattle would be an awesome thing for Seattle.
Can you imagine Seattle replacing Boye Mafe with Max Crosby? This season, this city would go crazy. Like, if you took like Tariq Woolen's money and what you may have paid Boye Mafe, and you give it to Max Crosby,
I don't think anyone would complain.
That's Superman level GMing by John Schneider. If that happens,
I don't think anyone would complain. Boye Mafe and Tariq Woolen for Max Crosby.
That's the kind of move that keeps you in contention every year.
Well, I rephrase that.
I mean, it would cost a first round draft pick in addition to that, but
the Raiders would be the team that complained about that trade.
Yeah. So it's crazy how rapidly this is all going to move for us on this show in the next month or so. So between now and the last week of February, which is when the combine begins, we're going to be talking about prospects as we head towards the NFL draft. Now, Seattle only has 4 picks right now. I don't think this year is going to be particularly as intensive as it has been for us in the past. I think as we go through this process, we're certainly going to want to share what we learn about all the players at all of the different positions groups. But given that we're starting a month later now in this process than we did last year, and we're already upon the combine, I think we'll be focused on the players in the combine and just kind of previewing a general preview of all the position groups and then really digging in between the combine and the draft as far as individual players and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll be talking about free agency, which starts in the middle of March. And yeah, here we go, running it back. And it's going to be a wild season as we head into 2026 as Super Bowl favorites with a mark on our team to be hunted. So we'll see. Pretty confident. Not in just the roster, what I think it's going to look like in September, but I'm confident in the process. I'm confident in John Schneider leading the charge, and I'm confident in Mike Macdonald being the head coach, and whatever happens under Mike Macdonald, as far as what the coaches look like or the offensive scheme, I'm not even worried about it. It's like, I know it's going to be handled at the highest level, and they're going to get us back in a position to be competitive. And that's the way it is.
Yep.
All right, let's get out of here. Find Keith on Blue Sky at Myers NFL. You can find me at NW Seahawk, the show, Seahawks Playbook podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platforms and our YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, all that good stuff. So until next time, go Hawks.
Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.